Hiya folks, how's it going? My name's Lexi and I really love tabletop games. So much so that we get together once a week, every week, to review one here at the gaming table. If that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to press subscribe and keep watching today's video. Today we are taking a look at a game I managed to pick up a second-hand copy of. I'm on a real kick at the moment for looking for second-hand copies of games. It's just a bit more budget-friendly for me, and I've just been finding lots of pretty recent games available for really reasonable prices. So expect a few more reviews where I let you know I got the copies second-hand. I do also love giving games a new home. I saw this one and picked it up because I thought it'd be great to review here at the gaming table. From Osprey Games, this is Romance of the Perilous Land. This game is set in a fantastical land inspired by the folklore of the British Isles, particularly Arthurian legend. You get a rough timeline for events that have led up to the present day in this game. Uther Pendragon, the father of King Arthur, makes an appearance in this timeline, so it's clear to me this game isn't trying to hide its influences. Apart from the Arthurian legends, the rest of the game's background is a mishmash of different folklores from across the British Isles. The book gives you different character encounters, enemies, locations, and interesting things you can see across the Perilous Land. Most of these elements are given a maximum of a short paragraph to describe them. I don't think this is a bad thing at all. I think for a lot of games, having your setting details be pretty brief is actually really helpful. Not only does it provide some freedom for players or game masters to use their own imagination, but it definitely prevents a game manual from feeling intimidating. I prefer it when the world is painted in broad strokes and you can go in with a detail brush to add your own flair. There's plenty of mythologies blended in. There's even a Robin Hood-like group you can encounter, or you could create your own group of merry outlaws. These mythologies are pulled from the context of their historic time periods and sort of lumped together. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to divorce the historic context of these mythologies to have a game in a fantasy setting. You can sort of hand wave why Robin Hood is running around the same time as King Arthur, as it's a magic land. And there are plenty of elements in the original folk tales that blend time periods and faiths together, such as Christian perspectives with pre-Christian British figures like druids. Perhaps if you were looking for a game to play within the historic time period of King Arthur, this is not necessarily going to be your cup of tea. I do think with the freedom that the manual provides you, you can expand the mythology or the setting a little to include folktales from further afield in Europe. But I suppose you could go even further beyond European medieval-esque folktales, but I'm not quite sure what that would look like. This game's mechanics are inspired by fantasy role-playing mechanics from the 70s, the same origin as many OSR games today. Something I find interesting about this game is for the character creation process, you roll your attributes and then pick your class. This way you kind of find out what your character is good at, and then you pick a class that possibly fits what you have. It's a little bit different to how things are done today, where generally you pick a class, then you roll and you might rearrange your scores to make them fit. In some ways, I like the method of rolling to discover what your character is going to be like. You might not end up with what you thought you would have, but it could be really interesting to play. For this game, you'd get a fair variety of character classes to choose from. There's knights, rangers, cunning folk, thieves, barbarians, and bards. Some of these are classic fantasy classes. Then there are a couple which are perhaps more unusual. The cunning folk is the main spellcasting group among these classes, and it is obviously inspired by the concept of cunning folk throughout European folklore. Barbarian for me always feels like an odd choice when you have a fully suited knight in the group. If your character wants to do something that's a bit of a challenge, the player will discuss with the game master a relevant attribute to roll for what they want to achieve. You then roll a d20. You generally want to roll at the same number as your score or below to succeed. Rolling at the same score or below does make it a lot more straightforward to explain. It's not rolling then adding different attributes or scores. The only exception to this general rule is for weapon damage bonuses, which you do have to calculate a damage bonus. For most of the game though, it's pretty straightforward. Magic also in this game is a little bit more complex, but I found the explanations for the effects of different spells to be pretty straightforward and easy to understand. I do want to quickly mention the different character backgrounds that are available in the game. For example, your character could have been a falconer before adventuring or a court jester. A further option for customization is talents. These are generally skill sets that your character has or gains throughout adventuring. Some of them are more mundane, general useful skills like blacksmithing, and other skills are more combat specific and might provide you a cool maneuver or a bit of a flourish. To boil this game down, you're basically rolling a d20 and hoping the result matches or is below the score on your sheet, which is pretty easy for beginners to get a handle on. Most OSR or late 70s fantasy inspired games tend to lean towards a more grim dark tone, so I found this one to be a bit more of an enjoyable change. It's definitely not a grim dark story. There is room, however, to introduce depth and complexity to the morals of any world. The folklore inspirations are pretty familiar to me, so I was able to get a grasp on them pretty quickly. Perhaps if you're entirely unfamiliar with British folklore, you might want to do like 5-10 minutes of research to get a broad picture of what you're looking at, but I don't think you need to do a lot of research. You just need to be vaguely aware that there was a guy with a sword named Arthur, who was a king. I genuinely quite enjoyed that the mechanics and how they were written up in this game feel so simple. Of course, if you want to play a character like a magic user, there are going to be some more complex rules involved, but the general principles are really straightforward. If you are a lover of heroic fantasy, then I think this game is going to be a lot of fun for you. I'm not sure if this game is going to appeal to current OSR fans. Currently, to me, it feels like a lot of the old school revival leans towards grim dark fantasy, and this is on the lighter tone. I also could perhaps just be commenting on a micro trend. I think this game has the possibility to be beginner friendly if you have a game master who's willing to lend a guiding hand here and there. Currently, you can get a copy of this game for around $24 US. I managed to get a second-hand copy for 20 Australian dollars, which was a pretty good steal, even with shipping. I'm pretty happy that I got a second-hand copy, but I definitely think it would be worth purchasing new if you would like to. Did you grow up with stories of King Arthur? Would this sort of setting feel natural to you or alien? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. While you're there, I encourage you to like this video. You also can subscribe and turn on notifications. This will mean YouTube will tell you when I've next uploaded. If you really like, you could share this video with a friend who you think would enjoy it. I also have a link in my description to my Ko-Fi page where you can donate to help keep this channel going. Any and all interaction encourages YouTube to share this video out more, which brings more people here. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the gaming table.